The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman. I thank my colleague for this extremely important amendment. We have a dire situation in Syria, and everyone's heart breaks for the suffering of the Syrian people. Over 100,000 people are getting slaughtered by the leader of their own government. It's absolutely unconscionable. But the question for us is, what can we practically do? And whatever it is that we do, does Congress have a say in the yes or no of military action? And I thank the gentleman for this amendment, because there's two questions here. One is the policy itself, the use of military force, arming the rebels. Is that a wise policy? Will it make things better, or will it make it worse? The second question is, whatever the policy is it the responsibility of those of us who have been elected to represent Americans, and we all do, is it our responsibility as members of Congress to be accountable in making that enormously important and consequential decision about whether we make a decision that has the potential to send our troops into combat? Let me talk briefly about the policy. The military situation there is chaotic. The rebels are united in an effort to bring down Assad. But distinguishing between, quote, the good rebels and the bad rebels is impossible. And in fact, we're reading reports right now of how rebels that are having disputes with fellow rebels are settling them by beheading them. That's literally what's happening. So the notion that we can have a micromanaged approach and pick the good guys and arm them and not have any reasonable, actually inevitable expectation that the arms will get into bad hands, I think is naive. Also, General Dempsey testified. He's a hard-headed thinker about military matters, and he laid out very clearly, if we just want to arm the rebels, that's going to be like $500 million, or it could be into the billions. We want to do standoff attacks, which supposedly will be surgical. That can be in the $1 billion a month range. If we want to actually have a no-fly zone, it'll take hundreds of ships and aircraft in order to implement that, over $1 billion a month. That's a consequential decision that we can't stumble into. But then the second question, Madam Speaker, is the congressional responsibility to act. One of the frustrations that I think Americans have with all of us is a sense that we're not accountable. And you know what? If we allow an action to be taken that has the potential to send troops into combat, and we haven't actually stood up and voted yes or no, then they are right. We have a job to do under the Constitution. And this amendment is really saying to all of us here in Congress on both sides of the aisle that if the moment comes where that decision is going to be made by the President, he has to return to us for approval, and we have to stand and make our decision. So that constitutional responsibility, what is more important? We'll talk about how much we admire the troops for their willingness to sacrifice, and all of us do. But you know what? All Americans admire the troops. 435 Americans in this chamber have the responsibility to make certain that when we take advantage of the willingness of these young men and women to serve and sacrifice, including give up their life, we are the ones who must make the decision about the policy. And our responsibility, all of us, is to make certain that whatever policy it is we're asking them to pursue be worthy of their willingness to sacrifice. That has to be done at the beginning. Once our troops are in the field, yes, we have to support them. And then once they're in the field, we find ourselves conflicted about having a discussion about how it is they got there. Well, you know what? They got there because we sent them there. Sometimes we do it self-consciously. Sometimes we stumble into it. That's not right. 435 of us in this House are united by a common responsibility to the soldiers and sailors that serve and to the citizens that we represent. So I thank you, and I see this as an opportunity for members of this House, both sides of the aisle, who share a common admiration for the people who serve in the military and a common sense of duty to the people we represent, that we have to be accountable for any policy that has the potential to send our soldiers into combat. I yield back.
The